Claire Matthews had just settled into her favorite chair after a long week, enjoying the rare silence of her quiet suburban home, when the unexpected sound of the doorbell broke the calm, making her frown in surprise. She wasn't expecting anyone, and Ryan, her 17-year-old son, had never mentioned a visitor. With curiosity pulling her forward, she opened the door and froze for a moment, startled by the boy standing there, someone she didn't recognize, with warm brown eyes, a hesitant smile, and a backpack slung over his shoulder. "Hi, I'm Luke. Ryan invited me over to work on a school project," he said, and Claire, caught between caution and politeness, stepped aside, letting him in while her mind raced, noticing the unusual calm confidence in his demeanor and the strange sense of familiarity that made her pause. As Luke moved through the living room toward the dining table, his eyes briefly landed on a framed photo of Ryan and Claire from a summer trip, and he offered a small, fleeting smile before looking away, which stirred a strange, unexplainable feeling in Claire's chest. She tried to brush it off as mere curiosity about a new visitor, yet there was something in his presence, subtle, almost magnetic, that made the air feel different, as if her home had shifted slightly in tone, charged with a quiet energy she couldn't name. Claire introduced herself, keeping her voice steady, and Luke's polite nod and easy, respectful manner immediately made her feel at ease, though an underlying tension lingered, a sensation that something unforeseen had just entered her life, bringing with it possibilities she hadn't anticipated and a gentle, cautious anticipation for what the coming days might hold. Even as Ryan's laughter floated from upstairs, Claire couldn't help but notice Luke's quiet attentiveness, the way he seemed to observe small details, the little gestures that showed thoughtfulness beyond his years, and though she reminded herself this was her son's friend, the curiosity, the unexpected spark of connection, and the subtle emotional stirrings within her hinted at a story that was only beginning, one that promised to challenge the ordinary rhythm of her days with moments of surprise, warmth, and the gentle unfolding of human connection that could touch her heart in ways she hadn't realized she needed. Over the next few weeks, Luke became a regular presence in Claire's home, arriving after school to work on projects with Ryan, and gradually, his visits brought a warmth to the house that Claire hadn't realized was missing. She watched quietly from the kitchen as the two boys laughed over homework or video games, feeling a strange mix of curiosity and unease at how natural Luke seemed in their space, how easily he connected with Ryan, and yet how thoughtful and attentive he was, noticing little details that others might overlook, like the way Claire always poured her coffee a certain way or how she hummed softly while tidying up. One evening, as Claire handed him a glass of water, their fingers brushed, and the fleeting touch sent an unexpected flutter through her chest, a momentary spark she immediately dismissed, reminding herself he was Ryan's friend and nothing more. Yet she couldn't ignore the warmth that lingered after he smiled at her politely, the kind of smile that felt genuine and curious, not intrusive. Luke's presence was quietly magnetic. He asked about her day, listened without judgment, and sometimes shared his own stories with a vulnerability that made her heart ache softly with empathy and understanding, creating a bond that was gentle yet undeniably stirring. Rainy afternoons became the most revealing, with Luke sitting across from her, talking about dreams and hopes while Ryan was at soccer practice, and Claire noticed herself laughing more easily, feeling lighter in ways she hadn't experienced in years, as if his calm, thoughtful energy allowed her to breathe freely again. The house felt different when he was there, alive with conversation, subtle jokes, and quiet moments of shared understanding that carried a tension neither of them fully acknowledged but that lingered in glances and pauses, in the warmth of proximity and the easy flow of words. One evening, they all sat together watching a movie, and Luke's quiet comment about how comforting her smile was made Claire's breath catch unexpectedly, leaving her heart racing as she struggled to maintain her composure, while Ryan, oblivious to the undercurrent, laughed at the scene unfolding on screen. Claire began to realize that emotions she thought long buried, curiosity, admiration, and even a gentle attraction, were stirring quietly, softly, and persistently, making her more aware of every small gesture, every glance, and every shared laugh. Though she tried to focus on being a good host and a supportive mother, she could not deny the connection forming in those small, fleeting moments, a connection that was emotional and pure, but also intense in the way it touched her heart, reminding her that human connection could appear in the most unexpected places and that sometimes, a simple presence could shift the rhythm of life, planting seeds of warmth, longing, and quiet anticipation for what the future might bring. With each visit, the line between ordinary and extraordinary blurred slightly, and Claire found herself wondering, with a mixture of caution and intrigue, how such a young boy, so polite, so observant, so unexpectedly insightful, could have entered her life and stirred emotions she hadn't felt in years, leaving her both excited and apprehensive about the quiet, powerful impact of his presence in her home. Tea was a quiet Saturday morning when Ryan had gone out for soccer practice, leaving Claire and Luke alone in the living room, and the stillness of the house seemed to create a space where conversations could drift into unexpected territory, where words could carry more meaning than they ever had before. They talked about school, dreams, music, and books, each sentence revealing glimpses of their personalities, their thoughts, and subtle hints of longing that neither fully understood yet both could feel. And as Luke's eyes met hers with a sincerity that caught her off guard, he suddenly said softly, "I hope this doesn't sound strange, but I feel like I can talk to you about things I wouldn't with anyone else," and the quiet honesty in his tone made Claire pause, her heart tightening with a mix of surprise, tenderness, and a strange warmth she hadn't expected to feel for a teenager she knew only as her son's friend. She realized instantly that this was not about attraction in the traditional sense, but about a profound emotional connection, a rare and delicate understanding that made her feel seen and valued in a way she had almost forgotten, as though Luke had tapped into a part of her that longed to be recognized and heard without judgment. She responded carefully, her voice soft but steady, I understand. Sometimes talking to someone who really listens makes all the difference, and in that moment, the air between them felt charged with unspoken emotions, a quiet tension that was both exhilarating and disarming, leaving Claire acutely aware of every subtle gesture, every inflection, every pause in their conversation. Outside, the rain pattered gently against the windows, a soft, rhythmic soundtrack to the intimacy of the moment, mirroring the storm of emotions quietly stirring inside her, a mix of excitement, curiosity, nostalgia, and a longing for connection that she hadn't felt in years. Claire reminded herself constantly that she had to remain grounded, that Luke was Ryan's friend and her own boundaries were clear, but the reality of their interaction was undeniable. The conversations were genuine, heartfelt, and filled with a warmth that brought both comfort and a bittersweet ache to her chest. She noticed how Luke seemed to understand things without words, how his presence alone could calm her, make her smile, or spark a quiet reflection, and even as she attempted to maintain the decorum of their relationship, she could not ignore the profound impact he had on her emotions, the way his observations lingered in her mind long after he spoke, or the way his thoughtful gaze seemed to hold a depth that transcended his age. That morning, as the sun struggled to peek through the gray clouds outside, Claire felt a mixture of fear and hope, realizing that life had a way of presenting unexpected connections, moments of emotional clarity that could illuminate feelings she had thought dormant, and while she understood that the bond forming between them was complicated and required careful attention, she also recognized its beauty, the rare, quiet acknowledgement that human hearts could touch in ways that were innocent, emotional, and transformative, leaving a lasting impression that neither time nor circumstance could easily erase. By the time Ryan returned home, the conversation had shifted back to lighter topics, but Claire carried with her a renewed awareness of her capacity to feel, to connect, and to recognize the gentle power of companionship, understanding fully that the delicate, meaningful moments she had shared with Luke would linger in her heart, shaping her perspective on connection, empathy, and the unexpected ways life can bring warmth, understanding, and emotional resonance when you least expect it, setting the stage for changes that were quietly, inevitably approaching. Summer was drawing to a close, and the reality that Luke would soon return to his own school settled over the Matthews household like a quiet shadow, bringing with it a bittersweet ache that Claire hadn't anticipated. In the past months, Luke had become more than just Ryan's friend, he had grown into a gentle, comforting presence in her life, someone whose quiet thoughtfulness and sincere conversations had filled spaces she hadn't realized were empty, and now the house felt unusually still without the hum of his energy, the soft laughter that once made evenings feel warmer and lighter, and the subtle, heartfelt connection that had quietly developed between them lingered in every corner, making her keenly aware of how much his presence had changed the rhythm of her days. On his last evening, as the three of them shared a simple dinner, Claire noticed the way Luke's smile carried a quiet hesitation, the kind that spoke of words left unspoken and feelings carefully held in check, and she felt her own heart tighten with the tension of farewell, knowing that this parting was inevitable but nonetheless painful in its gentle way. After Ryan had gone to pack for a short visit to his grandmother's house the next day, Claire and Luke found themselves alone once more, and the living room seemed charged with a soft, lingering energy as they exchanged small talk that neither wanted to end. Each word and glance weighted with unspoken emotion, a mixture of gratitude, admiration, and the subtle, stirring awareness of what this connection had meant to both of them over the weeks they had shared. When Claire handed Luke a small, homemade cookie as a parting gesture, his eyes softened, reflecting a depth of emotion he didn't fully articulate, and he said quietly, almost reverently, "Thank you, for everything. You've been like family to me," words that made Claire's chest ache with a combination of pride, affection, and longing, and she felt the warmth of tears threatening to spill, yet she forced a calm smile, reminding herself to treasure the moment without letting it overwhelm her, knowing that their bond was precious precisely because it had remained respectful, meaningful, and unspoken in the ways that truly mattered. Luke lingered at the door, hesitant to leave, and for a heartbeat, time seemed suspended as they shared a look that carried all the weight of the emotions neither could fully voice, the understanding that life sometimes brings extraordinary people into ordinary days, leaving marks on the heart that endure far beyond the moments themselves, and then, with a final, lingering glance at Claire and a heartfelt hug for Ryan, he was gone, leaving the door softly closed behind him. Claire stood there for a long moment, absorbing the quiet of the house, the absence of Luke's presence, and the warmth that still lingered from his visits, feeling a profound mix of sadness, gratitude, and hope, recognizing that connections do not always need to be tangible to be powerful, that emotional bonds can shift perspectives, heal old aches, and remind one of the richness of life even in its simplest forms. She realized that love, in all its shapes, could be deeply transformative without ever crossing boundaries, that the quiet stirrings of the heart could be both innocent and profound, and that the memory of Luke, the young man whose kindness, insight, and gentle presence had touched her so unexpectedly, would remain with her, a lasting reminder of the beauty of connection, the delicate power of understanding, and the unexpected ways that life can open your heart when you least anticipate it. Leaving Claire both comforted and changed, ready to embrace the days ahead with renewed warmth, appreciation, and an open heart for the extraordinary moments life still had to offer.